I'm so interested in finding people's creative voices and exploring, you know, what the music means to people and what they're trying to say with their music and what they're trying to share. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about that side of things. It's really fascinating.
With love in your heart, remember your very first instinct of wanting to learn. Doesn't matter what age you were or are, that moment had with love in your heart. And every scale that you do, every note that you play from that place.
Welcome to the How to Harp podcast, where your harp, your journey are always front and centre. I'm Heather Downie, Harpist and founder of How to Harp, your online space for expert guidance and endless inspiration. Each week, we're here to empower, inspire and encourage you, whether you're just beginning or many years into your harp adventure. From chats with world-class professionals to real stories from everyday harpists, to practical tips you can use right away. This podcast is all about helping you feel happy, confident, and fulfilled with your harp. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by the extraordinary Sharlene Wallace. If you're not already familiar with Charlene and her music, prepare to fall in love with her creativity, humour and musical soul. She's an award-winning harpist known for her incredible range, from Celtic to classical, South American to experimental electronics. And her music takes her from grand concert halls to intimate leafy gardens. She's released 9 albums, taught at multiple universities, and she once had more harps in her house than you'd think physically possible. Or so she claims, because in this podcast, we really shine a light on what we think is physically possible. Also in the episode, we'll talk about Charlene's life as a harpist, the highs and the lows, and what keeps her creating. We'll also hear some of her stunning music, explore her newest projects, and share a couple of listener questions along the way. So get comfy, grab your cuppa, and enjoy this beautiful conversation with Sharlene Wallace. Hello, Charlene, and welcome to the How to Harp podcast. We're so delighted to have you.
Thanks, Heather. Amazing to be here. Well,
yeah, and it's a super special one because it's our first ever podcast. You are it, numero uno. Is it exciting to be our first one?
I'm thrilled to be the first one. Yeah, it's fun because who knows what'll happen because nothing's happened before.
Exactly.
It's like an improv.
It could go anyway. I'm very excited. So, the way that we do love to start when we're talking to people is to find out where it all began for you. So, how did you get into the harp? Where did it all start? Right back to when you were a complete beginner.
I always think of my beginning being sort of really, really young, like maybe 3-4 years old, and asking, begging for harp lessons. I have no idea where I got the idea from. But even living, close to a Toronto central town, there weren't many harp teachers. Weirdly, my mom actually grew up with a harpist in Toronto, which was really like they swam together. My mom was a big swimmer. She was a swim coach in her adult life, but one of her co-swimmers was played the harp, and but that harpist didn't teach, and weirdly they both ended up living in the same town, Oakville, where I grew up. So I grew up knowing this person, but I didn't know her obviously when I was 3 or 4 and starting to ask. And but when I did know of her, it's like, will Donna teach me to play the harp? No, she doesn't teach. Anyways, fast forward, and actually I was training as a dancer through while I was like begging for harp lessons. It was like I was doing the dance thing, and I went to the
Mm-hmm.
National Ballet School, and then I had a very bad injury,
Oh,
and and sort of a number of things just happened at the same time, and I wasn't dancing, and 3 months later my father saw an ad in the newspaper for harp lessons, and you didn't need to have a harp. And it happened to be this harpist from the United States who had come to, her husband had been transferred to the Toronto area, and she was giving harp lessons.
wow.
So it's like, oh my gosh, like, and I was about 16 at that point. Um, so I was getting ready for university. I
Mm-hmm.
was finishing, I studied with her for maybe 6 months or so, and she said, well, you should do harp in university. It's like, what? And all along I was playing piano as well. So I was actually very advanced on piano by that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sort of young for my age, being in whatever grade I was in. So grade 13, I thought, oh, what the heck? So I did a couple of auditions. In London, Ontario, and I was accepted there. And then I did my University of Toronto audition, and the harp teacher there forgot about my auditions, so she actually wasn't there. So I called her, and I still remember being at school by the front desk and picking up the phone, terrified to talk to Judy Lohman. Right?
Okay.
So it's like, hi, Judy, this is Charlene. I was expecting you to be, blah, blah, blah. She says, oh, no worries. Just come and play for me. So I did. And she said, well, it would be really great to take a year off and just study focus
Mm-hmm.
with me, because I mean, I'd only played for, like 8 months or so,
Mm.
whatever. And so I did that. I took a year off and practiced like 8 hours a day, kind of the crazy amount. I mean, music I knew. I was working on high level piano still, and so I just had to learn the how to, but I had Judy as a teacher. Like, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
She was so the following year I went into performance at U of T, and I lived with Judy and her family for my 4 years of undergrad.
Wow, you actually lived with her and her family.
Yeah, it was a wild house.
I
Yeah.
bet. I bet. That sounds amazing. Wow. Okay, before I start to unpick all of this, because I feel like I've got loads of stuff to ask about this, but we do like to know, since we're in the younger years at the moment, when you were growing up at home, what music was being played? What were your parents listening to? And so what was the first music you were listening to? And then when you were able to hit play yourself, what was the music that you were into as a young person?
Wow, that's a lot. Um, So I was training as a dancer, a ballet dancer. I would have ended up as a modern dancer in the end, but um, so I was and I mean, full on focus, Yeah. This was really, I loved moving. I loved
Mm.
movement. And so I was listening to a lot of ballet music. So, and my mom was a swim coach, and she also was a synchronized swimming coach.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so uh, and sort of the way I actually learned swimming was very Suzuki style, if you might. Like she, before Oakville had Parks and Recreation, and I was about three, and my dad built an in-ground pool in our backyard, which was like unheard of. And then through the summers, my mom and my aunt would teach swimming in the backyard, which was outside of my bedroom window.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so you had the
So,
music soaking in through the window.
yeah, and just like and learning to swim, like teaching the
Yeah.
neighborhood kids how to swim. And so it's like I was three, four, and but extraordinarily shy. So I after all the kids had left, I would go out and try what they had learned in their classes. So very Suzuki, like vibe learning. So so through, anyways, my point was, my mom would have these when she started teaching for the Oakville Parks and Rec, she had a synchronized swimming evening. And so all kids, and she had a ladies group. And then at the end of the year, they would have this big show. And so all these routines to music. So that music was being played all the time. Things like Tijuana Brass and and uh, I don't know, like what, like some pop kind of uh, uh, early pop kind of vibe, and a lot of classical music. I think I
Hmm.
really grew up with that sound in my head, and I didn't have siblings to be playing the rock and roll, or so I'm very naive about that whole echelon, but also folk music, like fiddle music. There was a lot of that being played on the radio. Canadian fiddle. Ontario has a big tradition of fiddle playing here, so that is definitely in my
In your psyche.
learning. Yeah, in my psyche. Yeah.
Nice. So it sounds like you've had a really lovely, bright, beautiful, eclectic mix of music growing up, but you that has been coupled with the understanding of what it takes to commit to something, to work hard on something from the dance. Did you go through
Hmm.
grades and all this sort of stuff? That concept, I think, when people are introduced to that at a young age, the understanding of commitment, work hard, repetition, how to practice, and all this sort of stuff. Do you feel that those two worlds, that eclectic mix of creativity and that kind of discipline from the dancing, came together and now kind of play a role in your approach to music today?
Absolutely. And because that's what it takes. And it's, I kind of feel it's irrelevant what the goal is. There a goal? Why is there a goal? What is our realistic goal? What is our imaginary, our dream goal? All of those things, if if we want to feel, I mean, the playing of the harp to me is really about sound, creating sound, experiencing sound, sharing sound. The harp is the vehicle. It happens to be. um, spectacularly beautiful vehicle.
So let's go back to the Judy household. So you were living and studying at university. That sounds quite intense.
It was very intense.
Yeah.
Um, I might also say that the year before, when I had done the audition that um, she brilliantly didn't show up at, um, I had also signed up or been accepted for math
Ah.
at U of T, and I was already picking my courses, like all of it, and to walk away from that, the continuation of education, like academic education as opposed to creative education, I think I was actually a really big deal.
Mm.
And so I wasn't actually going to university to become a harpist.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to study with Judy to know how to play the instrument.
Mm.
That's it. That's all. Whatever happened, it never occurred to me actually that I would be like, that would be what I did for my life.
Mm-hmm. Being interested in maths, like music, there's a lot of maths in music. There's a lot of adding up and a lot of it equals. And, I mean, do you not sometimes find yourself thinking a lot about maths and, how things add up and things like this when you're creating your music?
Oh, absolutely. It's I I mean, as the musician that I am, I didn't learn music, even though I took piano for many years. I played a little flute. My first introduction was through dance, absolutely. And so strongly, so committed that I really feel that I learned music through movement. So that's always my go to, my instinct is movement. When I'm playing, how I play, how I, with my compositions, my perceptions in improv, it's all movement to me. It's not really stronger, possibly, than the audio.
Well, I think it's definitely time for us to listen to some of your music because it's absolutely amazing. I've been listening to it in preparation for this podcast and really, really enjoying it. So we'll take a listen to this track and then you can tell us a little bit about it and the project that it comes from and maybe your creative processes in working it.
Cool.
Tell us about it.
So this is along the way. It's off of my newest album, Lilac, Embers. The whole project of Lilac Embers is very special. It's very personal. Um, it's obviously harp, Celtic harp, and electronics. Um, the the impulse for this whole project, because it's going to explain this piece partly, but the impulse for the project was to work for the recording engineer Jean Martin. Um, is also like massive improv creator, sound creator. Aside from being a recording engineer, he also is very heavily into electronic work. And I met him through a different project with Frank Horvat, who we'll get to a little bit later. Um, so working on a project with Frank, Jean was uh, the recording engineer. And there was just something about his responses to what we were doing and the playing that, I mean, he was just moving the buttons, right?
Yeah.
But it's not Frank. He and I don't work exactly like that. There's more communication than that. It's like there's something about this person who I need to work with. I
Sure.
need to create with. And I sort of said, so Jean, I have these pieces, a few pieces. And he was sort of saying the same thing. Oh, we should work together. We should do some harp and whatever it is he does together. So that was the impulse. And so the pandemic started, and it took a little bit longer before we could actually get together. And I brought one piece, Stillness, to him. And we, we, so every piece, this project came with absolute openness, nothing, no holding back, nothing, um, no rules. And everything, there's one improv piece, Deeper Than the Quartz. Everything else are, all of the other pieces are my compositions. Um, but we've completely reimagined them in an improvisatory, different way. So if you look at some of them, if you look at the music, which there is, it's like where to go? So for this piece, along the way is based on, if you're like, if I remember as a kid, and it's like been a small obsession with me, traveling in a car and the different layers of speed that the visual landscape you track as you're going past. So everything close is like really blurry, and then but in the background it's like still.
Yeah.
and and that was the idea behind this piece. um and the what you just heard actually very soon goes into this hyper groove, layered. There's so many layers in this. So we I would play, and then I would play like maybe one chord, um but and then we would, there might be uh 10 recordings of that chord in different ways that I did. And even just like grab strings, like
Yeah.
it you can hear in that bria, like like what chord is that? It doesn't matter. It's like emotion. And then the layering of the groove and like some pitches, everything you hear, like I would say 99% of what you hear on this album is me playing. So either my acoustic lever harp or my straight electric lever harp. And sometimes we're throwing the pitch down 3 octaves or manipulating. He was constantly manipulating the sound, which was it's this has been in my head to do for probably 30 years.
Wow.
And I finally found, and I've been searching for the person to help to have this same vision of openness, really. That's all there is. There was no absolute trajectory where any of it was going. And it only started with one piece. And it's like, oh, that was fun. Let's do another. So, and then we had too many pieces to not do something about
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Anyway,
Oh,
that
lovely.
that particular track is, and I videoed. So I go to Wells, BC many summers to teach. I've been doing that for over 30 years. And so on the last trip that I was there, I videoed the forest on the way into the Caribou Mountains. So that's all the visuals that you're seeing that I hyper manipulated,
Lovely.
colorized, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Amazing. It was a really, really lovely piece. Really, really fun. That's
Thank you.
cool. Um, so you mentioned there a little bit about you've obviously talked a lot about your creative process, which is really exciting and interesting, and also finding your own creative voice. But you have mentioned a couple of times that about teaching. So teaching makes up a part of your professional life. Can you tell us what teaching means to you, and why it's something that you decided to do alongside the creative output that you have?
Well, I started teaching when I was 15. I started before I played harp. My piano teacher at the time, um, I was work I was kind of working on grade 10 repertoire, and she said, "You need to start teaching." It's like, "Oh, okay." Like that's not really me, but anyway, I learned skills of teaching and listening. I mean, partly through that early experience, and then it was just natural when I started playing harp that I would continue that. But and I used to teach a lot of children and some adults, and throughout the years that has shifted dramatically to mostly people doing creative work, singer-songwriters, people, harp players working on improv or compositions or and adults just learn. I mean, to me, again, it's not to be a harpist, right? And still don't have that paradigm in my brain. um, but it's to explore
Yeah.
your your who you are really through this instrument and with absolutely with technical ideas that will allow you to do that. It's not about having good technique, right? It that isn't an end goal for anything except having good technique. It's to give you tools to to output the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
the phrasing, the knowledge base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So yeah, I've done many, many workshops, you know, half day, day long, weekends, week long. Um, yeah, I guess I guess I like it.
I'd hope so if you're doing it.
Yeah, no, it's just I think I've been doing it so long, it's just one of the things that I do. And I really enjoy getting to know my students, right? I can barely call them students because we're just exploring their journey, and I really do follow their journey about where they want to be. So, which is why I have such eclectic group of students focused on many, many different things.
That sounds really exciting, and I can imagine that kind of, having such a big mix and a wide variety. You talked about growing up with that huge mix of songs, and you were a dancer, and your mum was the swim coach, and like lots going on. So then to be working with lots of different creative voices, and people outputting different things and wanting to express themselves in lots of different ways is almost just an extension of what you had then. And so of course it's going to be enjoyable, right? Does it
Yeah,
feed you?
exactly. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
nice, lovely. Well, maybe we should listen to another piece of music from you then. This clip is a little bit longer, and after we've listened to it, you can tell us all about this one and this project. Wow, amazing. I can't wait to hear about it.
Thanks. So this is elm or pine, specifically kind of Scots pine. Um, wow, where to begin? This is from my project Trees. Listen. It This is the project that Frank Horvat and I created together. We co-composed this music, which in itself is somewhat unique for two classical sort of whatever it is we do, separate composers to actually come together. But we had worked on a couple of projects of Frank's, and we really wanted to do something together. And this started during the pandemic. Um, he actually did a whole project called Music for Self-Isolation, pieces, compositions for just about any instrument you can think of, including singers, orchestral piece. I can't even remember how many. Um, and that was done li literally during the pandemic. We like recorded on Roy Thompson Hall, where he couldn't be near any. Anyways, it was very profound, and we didn't know what it meant. Like we thought, well, why don't we try? Why don't we like write something together? And the like, okay, we need a theme. Like, where is the source coming? What is our source? And I I'm really drawn to nature for most of my inspiration, and forest trees. And he happened to be reading a book at the time, To Speak for the Trees by Diana Beresford Kroger, who is Irish Canadian. She now lives in the Ottawa area, just south of Ottawa. And in this book, it's sort of her experience growing up with the one of the last of the Brehon knowledge base. Her uncle who raised her had that. Her 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 she she was orphaned, and anyway, fast forward, she has all this natural druidic wisdoms, um, but she ends up as a biologist, a biochemist, multiple doctorates. So she's coming from the spiritual uh, aspect as well as the scientific in her exploration of what we need as a planet. Simply, I mean, to simplify it, plant trees, right? So in the second half of the book is all about the Om script, which is the Celtic alphabet, all based, every letter is based on a tree. So the letter A, it comes from the Irish elm, which means pine, Scots pine, so etc. And so we thought that, like, this is fabulous. Like, we've got these alphabet letters. Music is based in the alphabet. We have an alphabet letter as well in so we took the musical alphabet A, B, C, D, F, G, and we added H, which is also B. We I grew up in a town after the name of the great oak, and the oak is the king of the forest. So we did two oak compositions. So we ended up with nine compositions. And then we needed a process and so to co-compose. And so we went and with Jean Martin, again, our recording engineer, amazing person. We went into the studio, and I had just received my Mark Norris harp at that point, so
Oh,
just in time to do the recording on the Norris, yeah,
yeah.
which was pretty special and just spiritually aligned. So I improvise. So for example, for the pine elm, the letter A, we I improvised on A. I played lots of A's, all of the harp, different A's, different chords. We spent a few hours just improvising, getting sound bites, like over 100 sound bites easily, well over. And we did that for every tree. Frank then took those sound bites and created an electronic bed track of music. So, and then I took that bed track and I wrote a solo harp part over top of that.
What a great project.
Yeah, it was pretty spectacular. We were really fortunate to have an amazing Canada Council grant and a Ontario Arts Council grant who supported this. And Diana has been extremely supportive in this project as well. And the last performance I did last month of it was she was present and did a sort of a wonderful lecture and then was able to experience the vibe, the
Lovely.
forest vibe.
Oh, that sounds amazing. How exciting. Wow. So, Charlene, you've got a total of 9 albums now, which is a lot of creative output. So, maybe you can tell us about how you fill your creative cup. How do you keep yourself creating that much?
Um, I don't, nothing consciously. I think I've always, as just always something I'm doing, whether it's doing drawings or photographs, and then that, or I, I mean, in terms of music, often I'm writing for something or for someone. I just last month wrote a piece for two very close friends of mine, harp players, Laurie Gemmell and Jennifer Swartz, and I wrote them a harp duo called Morning Morning Glory.
Hmm.
And I think and I think just nature always helps to remind me um, of, for me, the point,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in a city. I'm lucky fortunate that this city actually has an incredible tree canopy
Mm-hmm.
and lots of rivers running through it. And I'm very close to the lake here. And um, I think noticing, just, I have to keep noticing. And whether that's in quirky word mashups or, just going, going down to the creek or,
Sure.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple of, I want these to be slightly quick fire questions
Okay.
because they're hard. So I want you to try and think of one. So, first of all, I'd like you to try and think back on your career. And is there been one highlight, one really, really kind of moment that you just think that was just the best moment in my career?
Playing at Celtic in Italy.
Nice. Good. Why?
It it was just the vibe. Being at the base of Mont Blanc was spectacular. The people were spectacular. The experience was, it just doesn't get better than that.
Lovely. That's amazing. And then, as not as nice a question, but I think it's good for everybody to realise that as a professional musician, it's not always creatively pouring out and sharing your soul and things being lovely. Like things can be difficult and they can be a struggle. So, would you feel comfortable sharing one of the harder times you've had in your career and when you've faced a struggle and how you've overcome that?
Um, like something like a performance going
Could be.
awry.
If that's what's coming into your head, then yeah. I think a lot
That
of us could
probably,
relate to that.
yeah. I always say if you're afraid of it happening, it's already happened to me personally. So the thing that comes to mind is performing the Debussy dances. So with full orchestra, and the first half of the program was that and a few other pieces. Second half of the program were my compositions that have been orchestrated for orchestra on Celtic harp. So I was doing both. So it was a lot. And I was performing on my very brand new Salzedo at the time. And when when I was tuned and then I was going to go backstage and I thought, I don't need to keep my strings out here. Like, what are the chances? So I took them back to the green
Oh
room.
no.
So about, I don't know, I was um just towards the end of Dans Sacré. It's like, whoa, like what was that pedal that went awry, right? So I'm madly checking, and I don't know if you've ever
Mm-hmm.
played it, but it's pretty much nonstop except for a few bars, right? And
Yeah.
so I kind of got to those bars, got all the pedals in the right place, and the whole thing is like, when your mind is
Yeah.
like massive, okay, like I'm not feeling pedal, like, and it's a lot of pedaling happening. So I get to that, all the pedals are good. I continue on, and it's like, what is going on? There is something massively wrong happening here. And my mind is completely unraveling. And then I got to the solo moment, which is only a few pages from the end
Yeah.
of the whole thing. And my middle A broke. And it's like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. In a way, a
because
relief,
you're,
no? Not my pedals were wrong or anything like that.
I know,
Yeah.
exactly. Like my second finger was always like a second, like like a string, like what? And I had that. I mean, I was really unraveled. I don't think I've ever been that unraveled, and that I can never do this again, kind of. And so I just stopped. I stood up. My a friend, the conductor was a dear friend of mine, and I could feel him going, "What are you doing, Shar? What is going on?"
Hmm.
And I mean, everyone could hear there was something
Of
wrong, right?
course,
So I
yeah.
just stood up and I said, "You are the most honored audience to have witnessed the breaking of a harp string," and like roaring laughter. And so I said, you know what? Gordon will conduct the next piece while I go off and put a new string on, and then we'll do the second dance again, which is what I did. Anyway, it was fairly terrifying
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. And how was it when you played the second dance? Like, were you able to recompose yourself, or did you feel wobbly going into it? I mean, it would have been going out of tune, surely.
Well, what was happening is it was unraveling.
But I mean, with the new
So the
string.
whole piece, it was just right. So the new one, um, I, I kind of really, there's the way of yanking
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
to try and fast tune it and just in that moment, those few bars, I tweaked it, over tweaked it a bit so that by the time I got to the solo bit, it would be sort of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was still a better, and one of the most memorable concerts they've experienced.
Sure, sure.
Anyway,
But
so it's all good in the end, but
yeah,
of
it
course,
is.
didn't have my strings with me. Why would, you know, it's like
Lesson learned.
my heart being a bit of a jerk.
Do you know though? When we were down in Cardiff, William was with me for this, and we were watching Isabel Moretti perform, and she was actually performing Debussy's Arabesque, which is one of my favorite. I just love that.
Wow.
I know, like everybody loves it. I don't care. I love it too. It's beautiful. And I was sitting there like, oh, I'm gonna get to hear Isabel Moretti playing this. It's gonna be amazing. And her string broke in the middle of it, didn't it, Willie?
Yeah, it does.
But this is what happens when you're Isabel Moretti. Jacques was in the audience as well, so he like rushed up onto the stage, and Alex Ryder rushed onto the stage as well, didn't he? I've never seen so many men rush onto the stage to change someone's harp string. I tell you what, when a string's broken on stage for me, I've never had any men rushing on stage to help me. So it happens to us all.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's not the first time,
No, of
but
course.
that was literally the worst.
Yeah.
The one other time I actually had I was doing a concerto with on my lever harp, but I had my pedal harp because I was also playing in the orchestra part as well, so I could just switch them out.
Oh,
But
nice.
I couldn't do that in this, you know.
No, no.
No.
That would be some serious, serious lever work, I think,
Yeah,
for anyone.
exactly. Oh, for a cross strung
Yeah,
in that
absolutely.
moment.
Phew. Okay, great. Well, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is that um, I think if you're honest, right? Because you just stood up and you said to everyone,
Yeah,
"This is what's
yeah.
happened. My harp string's broken." So when we're having
I
our
made a
struggles,
joke. Yeah, exactly. I made light of it. So, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and you're still here to tell the tale,
Barely, but yes, I'm still here.
of course. Now, we do have a question from our listeners for you. So I definitely want to make sure that I give you this.
Okay.
So Ruth sent in this question for you. And she's interested to know that when you're learning a new piece, what your process is taking that piece from the first time that you look at it, how you practice it and how you break it down to get it to that performance stage.
Oh my goodness. I think if you have it, if that piece is a known piece and there's a recording of it, I think it helps a lot to have at even though it's someone else's perspective, it helps to have that in your ears already, even before you start fingers to strings. And then if that is a possibility to be listening and to be just looking at the score if this is a piece that you're learning music from and to analyze
Mm-hmm.
and start looking at the score for similar bits so that it's not all just dots on the page,
Mm-hmm.
random. It can feel so random. You want to get it organized so that it means you're already working on your practicing bits. And um, and then depending on your level, like left hand, right hand, start experiencing those two hands, especially if there's a strong tune. Know that tune, be singing it, playing it throughout in sections, really getting to know it. Have your fingering all worked out before. The more you can do, say, so that your muscle memory is learning accurately immediately, helps a lot. Obviously, slower practice is always a grand idea. Um, slow, spacious playing,
Mm-hmm.
listening to the in between, which we'll get to that too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then always small bits,
Mm-hmm.
which is all part of um, what does it take not to be overwhelmed by it? All of these things are about not being overwhelmed
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great advice.
and
That's great.
getting to know it and musically and immediately feeling the music, practicing it in two different ways uh, for the muscle memory, analytical, but doing it consciously so your brain doesn't go, oh, this is the robotic way I'm going to play it. And then also with the music immediately, like don't wait to put that into the memory bank because that's a different way of playing.
Mm-hmm.
You're now learning it a different way. So if that means starting in smaller bits musically, up to a phrase, perfect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, amazing advice. Thank you so much. And you hinted on it there, but you are, of course, our special guest in the How to Harp membership this month in August. And we're so excited. We're going to be treated to a concert from you and then from a workshop. So, can you give us just a little sneaky peek? What can we expect to hear in the concert and what are we looking at in our workshop?
For the concert, I think I'll be probably doing mostly my own pieces. And from a perspective of spacious playing and listening, and there's probably some improv that'll happen, improvisingly so. And the workshop, that's what we're going to be sort of listening to the in between. What does that mean? What am I all about? Always talking about listening to the in between and how to use that in our practice. And it's not about just playing slow, it's actually also about when we play fast.
Yeah.
And the concept of silence is sort of tied up in that, and then silent playing, the benefits of that as well for deep muscle memory learning.
Amazing. Amazing. Sounds great. Now, you have a little statement somewhere, written online somewhere that I picked up on that says that at one point in time you had in your house more harps than anyone could ever imagine. So I need you to explain this statement because I feel like I can imagine a lot of harps.
I sometimes call it an embarrassment of harps. And I'm trying, I'm getting help for that. I
Okay.
am
It's a
trying
condition.
to, it's a condition. I have managed to sell one already, a few
One.
more to go. I know you have to start somewhere, Heather.
Sure, celebrate every
Don't you
win.
think?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so how
Um,
many? I need to know how many harps though.
oh, you think I've counted?
There's too many harps to count.
Well, let's see. Three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. There might be a dozen and a half.
Okay, I'd love you to finish this up by giving us. Most of our listeners are harp learners, and so I know this is another hard question to answer, but I'd love it if you could give us your one like best tip for harp learners out there, to help them on their journey.
With love in your heart,
Nice.
whatever it is you're doing, with love in your heart, remember your very first instinct of wanting to learn. And that first lesson, the wowness, doesn't matter what age you were or are, that moment had with love in your heart. And every scale that you do, every note that you play from that place.
Amazing. That's beautiful advice. Sharlene Wallace, thank you so much for being with us. Any of you out there,
Thank you, Heather.
if you're interested in following more of what Charlene is producing, getting involved in her many, I'm sure there'll be many projects on the horizon, then you can head over to her website. For those of you who are watching with us visually, you can see it now on your screen. If you're listening to us, that is charlenewallace.com. Thank you so much, Charlene.
My pleasure. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, William.
All good.
Tea at my place next week.
Oh. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How to Harp podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation with Charlene, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and do share with another harpist who might be inspired too. I'll be back next week alongside the amazing Angela with a behind-the-scenes tutor chat from the How to Harp team. Until then, keep playing, keep exploring, and of course, above all, happy harping to you all.